Sandranandavabodhatmakam anupamitam kaladeshavadibhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam drushtamatre punarurupurusharthatmakam brahmatattvam tattavat bhati sakshat gurupavanapure hanta bhagyam jananam. Shri Radha Krishna Bhyan Namaha. I think a great place to start when we talk about Radha Upasana in particular is to give a few disclaimers. For those of you who are joining in to any of the sessions that are being hosted by me, you know that, or rather my request is if you can keep aside your footwear, your padaraksha while you are listening, because we are listening to Bhagavad Katha. For those of you who are familiar, I'm sure you've already done that. And if you have any distractions that are keeping you aside, like your phone, if you could mute that so that we can stay with single pointed focus. These are regular disclaimers, but with respect to Radha Katha, the biggest disclaimer is this. We are not approaching this from a scholarly space. We are not looking at this from the lens of academia. So we are not going to be dating and saying this book, which was written in this BC, has this mention. We are approaching this completely from the lens of bhakti and prema. So therefore, in this lens, we do not get into historical arguments and get into nonsensical arguments, even at some level, saying, is Radha decidedly fictional? For a bhakta, such a question never arises. And for those of us who are on the journey of asking and inquiring, those are the questions that I want us to park aside today, so that we are present with the joy of what Radha has to offer. The joy of Radha's experience and her gifts to us can only be felt when we are not constantly asking, but in Bhagavatam there is no Radha. In Bhagavatam there is very much Radha, and today we will start precisely there. So the title of this is Radha Leela as opposed to Krishna Leela, because we are all familiar with this term Krishna Leela. But where does the concept of Radha Leela even come? So I thought if we have to foray into the unfamiliar, let's begin with the familiar. Let's look at the idea of Radha and Krishna and see where all does Radha appear in the Bhagavatam. Through name and identification card and Aadhaar card, you will not see her, because there is a reason for that. I'll come to that at a later point. But you will see her shining through in certain portions from the beginning of the Bhagavatam itself. But if I have to pick it up from the very first slokam of the Prathama Adhyayam, that will take us a week. So today we will go straight into the Dashama Skandam, the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, the 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and there we will attempt to find where does Radha emerge. For the sake of this discussion and for us to understand better, when we look at Krishna as a whole, what we can see throughout Krishna Avataram is that he brings joy to anybody and everybody who interacts with him. Even the Rakshasas that he is slaying, even they experience that Ananda Anubhuti, that experience of bliss when they come in contact with Krishna. The ones who love him, they experience it in an unparalleled way. So, as an equation, as a mathematical equation, we can almost substitute the word Krishna with Ananda. I am not saying this. Shastram has said it. Narayana Bhattatri said it, the epic composer of the immortal Narayaniyam. When he began, he said, Sandranandava bodhatmakam. Sandra Ananda. Sandra is dense, undiluted, concentrated. Ananda is joy. Krishna is the very figure of dense, absolutely undiluted joy. So every time we are talking about Krishna, we are talking about this joy for the next few minutes. Then what is Radha by that lens? If we were to look at Krishna as that source of joy, when we look at Krishna, there is a very strong sense for bhaktas, and all of you will feel it in your own way. There is a sense of love that we feel towards him. That love or that prema, Radha is that prema. This is all the derivation we need for now. I will sit and decode each of these things at a later point of time. So now we look at Krishna as Ananda Swarupam and Radha as Prema Swarupam, the manifestation of love for Krishna. Where do we see the manifestation of this love in the Bhagavatam? That is where Radha Leela begins. It starts in the very, very beginning. Look at the beautiful context. 9 chapters. Shukha Yogindra has sat Parikshit Maharaja down and has given him 9 chapters explaining various aspects of divinity. At this point, the very beginning, Parikshit says, you have told me all of these things, but I want to know one thing in specific. I want to know about Bhagavan, Bhutatma, which we hear in the Vishnu Sahasranamam in the very first few phrases. I want to know about that Bhutatma when he took avataram in Yadur Vamsham, in the Vamsham of Yadus, when he was born, tell me about that. Because who would not find joy, who would not find Anandam in listening to those Leelas? Anandam has already come, Krishna is already here. The second he says this, Shuka Yogindra says, it took me 9 chapters to explain to you to get your heart ready for this portion. Because Krishna Katha is not Sadharana Katha, it is not a Katha for entertainment. Krishna Katha has the power to take the heart and to drench it into an ocean of bliss. For that, the heart needs stability. The heart needs to ripen. Sadhana needs to ripen. It took Parikshit this much of time to ripen, and now when he steps into it, Shuka Yogindra says a very beautiful thing. He says, Naishtiki karma, because you have Purva Janma Sukritam, you have the punyam of another life. Now you're able and you're entitled to listen to Krishna Katha. So listening to Krishna Katha is not an ordinary thing. So everybody who's here by Swami's Sankalpam is receiving a fruit of some tapas of the past. This is where the Ananda Tattvam starts. There is somebody who is giving us entry into the world of Krishna. That somebody or that something is a deep sense of love which starts to manifest now for Parikshit. And for Parikshit, when this manifests, he's listening in rapt attention. Now, as soon as the story starts, Shuka Yogindra begins talking about Devaki and Vasudeva's wedding and how Kamsa puts them behind bars and all of this. And since this is a well-known story, let's take some portions from the well-known story where you can see the love and how Radha and Krishna are coming together from the very start of the Dashamaskanda. We glance through the story so fast we can miss these things. But let's look at the very first moment when Narayana has appeared. So the 8th son is born to Devaki and Vasudeva. In lunar calendars, it is Shravana Masam, Bahula Ashtami. If you take the calendar from Amavasya to Amavasya. If you take the calendar from Purnima to Purnima, it is Bhadrapada Masam. Whichever calendar you look at, the point is he is born. So don't get into intellectual squabbles about it. As soon as this light exits from Devaki's womb, Devaki and Vasudeva realize she did not feel any sense of labor at all. And now, in front of them, they are seeing with Shankha Chakra Gada Padma, Narayana is standing in front of them. Narayana is extolled. Vasudeva and Devaki both do a stuti praising Narayana, and Narayana is pleased with them. And he responds with one vakyam. That one vakyam is a kilaka amsham. That is a key. If you hold on to that key, you'll open the door to Bhagavatam. He says, in this avataram, now I have come, I want you to worship me in 2 ways. Putra bhavam and Brahma bhavam need to come together over here. If you worship me as your putra, first came putra bhavam, then came Brahma bhavam. Look at this beautiful bhavam. The second you look at me as your child, that overflowing love will take care. But remember at the back of your heads that I am Paramatma. This putra bhavam requires what? Brahma bhavam is looking at him as Paramatma. We look at every form of divinity like that. But Brahma bhavam can be distancing for a jiva. It can feel intimidating. Imagine if in this moment, wherever you are sitting, in front of you, if Shankha Chakra Gada Padma Dhari Narayana himself appears, anyone would be intimidated. There is awe, but there is also intimidation saying, such a cosmic lord who is holding the 14 worlds in place, the Chaturdasha Bhuvanas are in his control, he has now appeared in front of me. Oh my God, that's the first reaction. But when Putra Bhavam is there, when this one has now become my child, that sense goes. That Putra Bhavam requires love. It requires prema. So you see how the concept of Radha gets introduced here. Here Vishnu is giving them an Upadesham saying, love me in this avatar. You don't see this kind of an announcement in any other avatar. Because when he's saying it here, he says it with confidence and with one more beautiful aspect. Divinity is waiting to be loved. Divinity is not waiting to be understood. Divinity is not waiting to be discovered. It is waiting to be loved. Because we can give divinity anything. We can give Paramatma anything. In a puja, we feel so proud about it saying, oh, I made 21 types of Naivedyam for Ganesha. Okay, great, but he rules the entire earth. The Mooladhara, Chakram and Bhumandalam is his only. So all those 21 things that you made are all belonging to the earth, which technically anyway belong to him. What do you possibly give him? There is a beautiful shlokam in Shivananda Lahari that says, look at Shiva. Shiva is sitting at the base of a Kalpa Vriksham. That Kalpa Vriksham itself is a wish-fulfilling tree. It will give you everything. And he has, in Kailasagiri, there are cows like Surabhi and Kamadhenu who will give him anything else that is still left over. In case he's still feeling, Ayyo, I didn't get this, his neighbor is Kubera, who is Dhanadipati. He can give him anything else he wants. So if I have to give such a person something, what will I give him? Everything he wants already is taken care of. There's only one thing I can give him, which is my mind and my heart. He doesn't have them because they are going all over the place. Putra bhavam. Again, the one thing you can give him is love. Vishnu himself is giving Upadesham, saying, give me love. And in this avataram, see what happens. The Bhagavatam, the Dashamaskandam of the Bhagavatam, is a case study of people who have given their heart to Krishna and what happens to such a being. That's all it is. When you stop looking at it as a story after story, you will, for yourself in your journey of sadhana, if you want a case study, this is a compilation of such beings. So now, look at what happens. There is a beautiful verse right after this that comes, says, Bhagavat prachoditaha. Then Bhagavan says, oh, Shankha Chakra Gada Padmadhari Narayana says, pick up this little baby and put him in that basket. The doors of the jail will open, go past, go across Yamuna, go and put this little baby in Gokulam, bring the girl from there and come back. Well-known story, so I'm going past it fast. But look at the words, it says, Bhagavat prachoditaha, instructed by Bhagavan. Bhagavan is telling him to do this. What does he do? Sutam samadaya. He takes the sutta. He's inspired by Bhagavan, but what does he do? He's picking up the sutta. He's already gone into Putra Bhava. Bhagavat prachoditaha is Brahma Bhavam. Putram, Sutam Samasadaya is Putra Bhava. Already Putra Bhavam is come, saying, my child. Here he's not in awe when he has to pick him up. He picks him up. And now there are beautiful commentaries on this part saying what kind of love Vasudeva is feeling now when he's carrying Krishna. And Vasudeva is looking and he's saying, how did the shackles break? The shackles, because he is in jail when Krishna is born. I know a lot of you are thinking, I paid ticket for Radha Leela. This fellow is saying Krishna Leela. What to do? They are inseparable. To understand Radha, you have to go via Krishna only. To understand Krishna, you have to take the other route. So today we have to understand her, so we have to spend time with him. Vasudeva is standing in this moment and he's saying the shackles have broken. These are tight shackles. They will not break so easily. The doors have opened of the jail. All the guards who are otherwise so vigilant have suddenly fallen asleep. How did this happen? The acharyas who comment on this portion say it so beautifully, saying, what is Vasudeva doing? He's carrying Krishna on his head. If somebody carries Krishna Namam on their lips with love, then the shackles of Janma and Marana, those shackles are gone. The doors of Vaikuntha and Goloka only will open for such a person. All the Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya that are constantly awake inside the body, all of them will sleep. If Krishna Namam is carried on the lips with love, then if you're carrying Krishna himself with love, imagine what will happen to you. That is the Bhagavatam's first Sandesham, saying, carry him with love, he will pick you up. You look like you are picking him up, but actually he is picking you up. And then Vasudeva moves into the Yamuna. As he moves out of Mathura and he steps out, look at this moment. In the Bhagavatam it is described that everything in nature acquires such a joyous mood now because the Lord has arrived. But there is a problem. There is a practical problem. Everybody is salpa overexcited right now, including the clouds above. So the clouds above in this moment are sending a downpour on Krishna. Salpa inconvenient, no? Eshtadru, no? When in this moment, when there is a task to be performed. It's not like Ramavataram where he's in a palace and everything is sheltered and covered. He has to move between two places and there is a river. And now with the rain, it is in full spate. And to add to this, there is a downpour. It's not an ordinary rain. But this is the joy, the prema anubhavam that every being is experiencing. When you look at Krishna, you will see, we have something called the Krishnopanishad. Krishnopanishad will tell you which being was born as which leaf in Gokulam and Vrindavan, because in Krishna Katha, when it came to Krishna, nobody is inanimate. Everybody is with Chaitanyam and everybody is waiting to fall in love with him. They've already fallen in love with him. They're waiting to express that love to him. So the clouds also want to express that love. And how do the clouds do that? The cloud immediately sends one downpour. Now this is a great expression, except for the boy. The boy is going to be drenched. So now, as an umbrella, somebody has to come. That is Adishesha. We all know that Adishesha immediately accompanies, and who is carrying him? Vasudeva is carrying him. Look at this moment. Prema bhavam. You want to understand Krishna, you have to take a margam of prema. You cannot do it in any other way. The prema that Adishesha shows in this moment. Adishesha is his eternal bed. In Vaikuntham, Narayana eternally reclines on Adishesha. So he can say, hey, why is Vasudeva carrying him? I'll carry him. He can even ask Vasudeva, saying, you sit down, I'll take him across and I'll go. But he looks and he says, eternally I have the bhagyam of carrying him. Now in this moment, Vasudeva is his dasa. Vasudeva is the one who is carrying him. Let me become a dasa to Krishna's dasa. Prema bhavam. Rahasyam number 2. In prema bhakti, you will not only look at the Lord and say, I will only worship the Lord, everybody else I will keep cursing. Anybody who serves the Lord, I will be a dasa to them. Dasoham tava dasa dasoham. To your dasa, I will be a dasa. So, Adishesha comes. When we look at a story, there's so much to pause. I can take this one episode and we can spend 1.5 hours. But look at this moment. Why does Adishesha come from behind? He can come from the side, he can come from any other portion, he can come from in front. He comes from behind because he says, Vasudeva is leading the way and Vasudeva's footsteps are here. Let me run my body across those footsteps of the person who is carrying Krishna so that I find joy. And when he comes as an umbrella, now 2 bhaktas are doing service. Adishesha is doing service with great love for Krishna and so is the rain. So which one will be honored? Adishesha pulls back, allows a little bit of a downpour, but okay, the child should not catch a cold, so he covers again. So he works as the world's first retractable umbrella or the first sunroof, which is operating not out of a machine, but out of great love. And in that moment, as Vasudeva goes across, he goes, places the baby, brings the girl child back from Gokula and places her here. Now let's also go with Vasudeva to Gokula and remain there, because the rahasyams of Radha start from now. Up till now, we saw an indirect glimpse of what this love is, of how this love appears for Vasudeva. But when you start to see how this love emerges in full force in Gokulam, the joy is unparalleled over there. The feeling is something unmatched. So we go to the very first incident that happens to Krishna when he's there. When Krishna is just a few days old, again I'm taking well-known incidents so that we can use these incidents as an anchor to understand, oh, Prema is here, which means Radha is here. Now, in this incident, what is happening? There is a woman who is sent by Kamsa. She is a Rakshasi. She has been sent by Kamsa in order to suckle Krishna to death. So she comes. What an evil intention, no? Krishna Katha is starting only with something so negative. But Bhagavatam is not an isolated grantham. You cannot pick it up in isolation from other things. It is connected to so many other phenomenal works. And one more Bhagavatam tells us something extraordinary. This is the Garga Bhagavatam. In the Garga Bhagavatam, it said that when Narayana incarnated as Vamana, when he came as the dwarf, as Vamana, at that point, as one Vatu, as a small Brahmana, he came to Bali Chakravarti. We're also in the season of Onam, so it's a nice time to share this story. He came to Bali Chakravarti and he says, just give me 3 footsteps of land, that's it. In that moment, Bali Chakravarti had a daughter whose name is Ratnamala. Ratnamala saw this and she felt, look at this boy. I wish I was a mother to him. I wish I could suckle and this boy would suckle at my milk. Ratnamala had that desire there. Paramatma Tattvam, if you have a desire, he will remember it. Whether you remember it or not, he will remember it. And he says, you hold on to that desire. In another avataram, you can come and feed me. That other avataram now for Ratnamala is Putana. Putana now came and he sucked the life and the milk out of her, both. Now, as soon as he does this, Yashoda and Rohini and all the others in Gokulam, they are horrified. This is where Radha Tattvam starts. Look at this moment. There is somebody who came very attractively dressed, that is Putana. So she came and everybody thought, oh wow, who is this? Who is this Gopi? But the second Krishna, or rather she picked up Krishna, and when he sucked the life out of her, her Rakshasi Swarupam is visible. So everybody is seeing this huge mound of a Rakshasi that's laid dead over there. And this boy is happily on top of her breast with milk pouring down, and he's looking very happy and very joyous. Now in this moment, anybody who is looking at Paramatma will think, Paramatma killed this Rakshasi. Not Gokulavasis, not the Gopis, not Yashoda, not Rohini. They thought, my goodness, is my boy okay? This is Radha Tattva. Your love for him will supersede everything else. Oh, Upanishad is saying, Antar Bahishta Tat Sarvam Vyapya Narayana Sthita. No, my boy, is my boy okay? That is the love for Krishna that comes out. That love is Radha. So immediately what does Yashoda do? She takes him, picks him up, and she takes him to a cow over there, and she moves the cow's tail around Krishna, the cow's tail hairs around Krishna 3 times, so that she will remove drishti. Then Krishna is looking smilingly and he'll get everything done. Every seva you do for him with love, he will do it, he will receive it, because seva is a form of Radha. Don't look for Radha as a person alone. Radha is a bhavam. Now what does she do right after this? She says, you wait, Nana. And she goes and she collects a little bit of cow dung, and taking that cow dung, she applies it in 12 parts on Krishna's body, saying Keshavaya Namaha, Narayanaya Namaha, Madhavaya Namaha, Govindaya Namaha. In the Bhagavatam, she further says, may Keshava protect this part of your body, may Narayana protect this part. He's watching, saying, they'll all protect me, Amma. Because that is the bhavam. Putra bhavam became greater than Brahma bhavam. Because if you have Brahma bhavam, you'll say, yeah, he'll take care of himself. This is the aspect of Krishna, of Bhagavad Tattvam, that you can inculcate into your lives. When we leave our homes, we're all thinking about ourselves. If we have to go on a 3-day journey, where is my first stop for dinner? What am I going to do the next 3 days once I'm out? Can we once stop to think, what about my God at home? What will they eat? Can I make some arrangements for them? Can I take them with me? I'm not getting into logistics of what should I do if I travel. Please don't ask this as a question at the end of the day. The point is your thought going in that direction, saying, I have to feed you also. You also need to be taken care of. So in that bhavam, Yashoda is completely immersed. And here onwards, now in Gokulam, once Krishna comes, this Putra bhavam is swept over everybody. Putra bhavam is here. Paramatma is here. Prema is here. Then how can the form of Radha be far behind? Because this aspect is the hidden. Radha is called, in our Sampradayam, she is called as the Gudha Nayika or Gupta Nayika. She is the hidden heroine of the entire epic. Because her presence, like this, we can pick up every single Krishna Ghattam from the Bhagavatam, and you will see Radha's presence as love. But we take the support of Itara Granthas, of other supporting texts, to also see her as a form, because there is equal joy in that. So one beautiful moment takes us to another time and place where there is a king called Suchandra. And Suchandra has this deep desire. Suchandra and his wife have this deep desire. Kalavati is his wife's name. And they want one thing in specific. They want to love the Lord with their entire heart. To love the Lord, they want to be parents to love. That is their requirement. So in that avataram, Brahmadeva comes and he blesses them, saying, in Dwapara Yugam, when Narayana incarnates as Krishna Parabrahma, the very manifestation of love will be born to you. She is Jaganmata. She cannot be born to you. You will find her. Now go and incarnate. When the time comes, go and incarnate. Suchandra and his wife Kalavati are reborn as a phenomenal Dampati whose names are Vrishabhanu and Kirtida. Vrishabhanu and Kirtida are instructed when Krishna is born. So there are different timelines about this. We tend to get confused because we wonder, is Radha older than Krishna, younger than Krishna, equal to Krishna? Don't worry about these things, because what we are catching on to is what is happening over here. So Vrishabhanu and Kirtida are instructed that in a town very close to Gokulam, if he is in Gokul, she will not be far. Rahasyam, you can't separate them. So in a town very close to Gokul called as Raval, in Raval, there is a small pond. In that pond, on a certain day, she will incarnate and appear inside a golden lotus to you. Take her home and know that the one that you have is the very manifestation of the mother goddess's love. All of that love is in one form, that is her. So give her the same name that she has in her eternal residence Goloka. She is known as Radha, you give her the same name. So what is the day that this happens to be? Her presence, where there is love, there is a sense of safety. Look at any child. When a child feels loved, when a child knows that their parents are around in the room, there may be 5,000 other people, but for a child, if their parents are around, when they feel loved, they will feel at ease. Feeling at ease, feeling secure in Sanskritam is Bhadratvam. And the Masam, where you see that Bhadratvam completely, is Bhadrapada Masam or Bhadraprada Masam. The Masam that gives us a sense of security, saying, Abba, both my parents are come here. Ganapati also chose this Masam only to come in. And 4 days later, on Ashtami, which is Devi's Tithi, on that phenomenal afternoon, look at the beautiful Rahasyam over here. Krishna came when? Midnight. Krishna is in Chandra Vamsham. Radha came when? Midday. Because she is in Surya Vamsham. Compare and contrast this to the previous avataram. Rama is in Surya Vamsham. Dinamani Vamsha Kulatilaka he is. Sita is in Chandra Vamsham. They will swap because Surya, Chandra, Ida, Pingala. For those in the Yoga Margam, there are Rahasyams waiting here to be explored. Now, Here she, at midday on Ashtami, in Bhadrapada Shuddha Ashtami, sure enough, Vrishabhanu goes and he finds her. And there's a very beautiful story. I know that some of you may have heard it earlier, but we cannot share this story, we cannot not share this story on the eve of Radha Ashtami, which is as soon as he brings her and finds her and takes her back home, he's so thrilled. Both of them, Kirtida and him and Vrishabhanu, are so overjoyed because Devi has chosen them to be her parents. And while they are thrilled, there is also one slight aspect which is making them uneasy. The baby has not opened her eyes. Whatever they do, they cannot get the baby to open her eyes. They continue for the next 11 days trying in vain until Narada Muni comes. Narada Muni knows when to come and what to do because he wants to tell a lesson. He wants the world to learn a lesson. So he says, Vrishabhanu, and Vrishabhanu is a king. So he tells Vrishabhanu that, listen, in your kingdom of Barsana, Barsana is an adaptation of the word Varsham. Varsham has a yogic connect with what Radha is. We will discover that later. In the town of Barsana, you will see Radha's palace visible there till date, Vrishabhanu's palace rather. And he says, you must conduct an Utsavam because you have had a Rajkumari now. So for her sake, have a massive Utsavam. So on this occasion, on the 11th day after she is born, a massive Utsavam is arranged for Radha Devi. However, they have not shared with anybody that she has not opened her eyes. So the Utsavam is in place. An invitation is sent to other chieftains of all the people around Gokulam, and Nanda arrives in tow with Yashoda and their little one. When Nanda and Yashoda come to see this little one, they have come with their little one, Krishna, to see Vrishabhanu's daughter Radha. The mothers are busy speaking, and in that moment, Yashoda goes out of that small little room where Radha is. Yashoda takes Kirtida and goes out. Bhagavat Sankalpam is always mysterious because Krishna is there means Yoga Maya is also there. Maya also will just delude everybody. In that moment, she leaves the baby. Yashoda doesn't let him out of her sight for 1 minute. If you read Bhagavatam carefully, she's always wanting him close by. That is until she smells the milk on the stove. But that's a different discussion. So now, when she's here, suddenly she leaves him down. And as soon as nobody else is in sight, this boy climbs up and goes and peeks into the cradle into which Vrishabhanu Nandini, the daughter of Vrishabhanu, is lying with her eyes closed. As soon as he peeks in, her eyes open. And he looks and he says, you took 11 days to open your eyes. Your parents are so stressed over there. She says, what to do? I said, I will begin my avataram seeing you only. No, I had to wait for you. You took 11 days to come. Now that I have seen you, my avataram has begun. And now, the opening of Radha's eyes is an indication that the Radha Tattvam becomes visible for us now. It was not that it was not there. This is an avataram. It is not a birth. An avataram is a manifestation of something. And the manifestation of Radha happened as a Gupta Swarupam till now. Now it is a Prakata Swarupam. It is visible for all of us to see. So from here, he goes back to Gokulam. And he continues his Leelas there in Gokulam. We'll focus on one Leela, which is a very important Leela for us to foray into Radha Tattvam. This talks about the idea of how bhakti surpasses all deeds of fear. Because for a majority of people, somewhere bhakti becomes about fear. Okay, I've been doing this, but if I don't do this, this will happen. That sense of fear sometimes can become so much in our conditioning, we won't even think about it. We won't question ourselves as to why are we doing something. We'll just do it saying, no, if I don't do it, this will happen. The same thing Krishna, when Paramatma is standing there in this avataram, I'll give you a disclaimer with all due respect, this is the most demanding avataram of Narayana. If he is sitting in front of you, you cannot hide anything from you. You cannot hide your butter, you cannot hide your thoughts also. If you have a thought, he will take it and he will pull it out and say, what is that thought? So he notices this thought in all the Vrajavasis, that they are about to do Indra Puja. And he goes to him and he says, his father, he asks Nanda, why are we doing this puja? He says, we have to. Indra is giving us rain. And if I don't do it, harm could befall us. There is fear in that moment. He says, oh, then why do for Indra? You should do for Govardhanagiri. Govardhanagiri is doing so much for us, for our sake. So then he convinces Nanda and the rest to do Govardhana Puja, and we all know what happens. Indra tests Krishna's strength, and Krishna effortlessly picks up Govardhanagiri. Krishna picks it up with his left hand. Although we show it as typically one finger, Bhagavatam mentions it as left hand. It is another Bhakta's interpretation, or maybe they saw it that way. But he holds up Govardhanagiri for 7 nights. And after Indra's pride is vanquished, saying, this is not an ordinary Swarupam, Indra comes. I'm not spending time on the Govardhanodharanam or the picking up of Govardhanagiri because this is known to all of us. But what happens after this is important for the next portion of the story. As soon as this is done, once Govardhanagiri he replaces it because Indra has now come and asked for forgiveness. Indra says, I mistook you to be a child. I did not realize that you are the source of all the Trilokyas, Trilokya Mooladha, Trilokyadhara Bhutam. You are the source, you are the base, Moola Stambam, the base pillar for all of these Trilokas. Let me have the bhagyam of performing an Abhishekam for you. So Krishna says, Tathastu, and Indra calls Surabhi, Kamadhenu and all the other Divya Gojati, that is, the species of divine cows are all summoned from Indraloka. And if you see other Bhagavatams, no, they are all in Indralokam, they're already started to let go of their milk because they're thinking, Abba, we have the joy of going and bathing Krishna in our milk. Right from there, they're not able to control it. So once they come there, Krishna is poured with all of these milks on him. And this portion of the Bhagavatam is called as Govinda Pattabhishekam. Pattabhishekam is, we tend to associate it only with Sri Rama Pattabhishekam. But Krishna also has a Pattabhishekam here. That is Govinda Pattabhishekam. What is the meaning of Govinda Pattabhishekam and why is that necessary for our next Leela, for us to understand that? That is a connection here. Because now Krishna, when Indra crowns him, he crowns him as the Lord of the entire Vraja Mandalam. The Lord of the universe, but specifically of the Vraja Mandalam. Of all this space, now he is the ruling Devata. When Krishna is here as the ruling Devata, a king must need a queen. So this is one aspect that is beautifully hidden over here. So I'm leaving all of these ends, we'll tie it up into one garland and offer it to Radha Krishna at the end. If a king has been crowned over here, there is one more aspect that here he is called Govinda in this context. But when the avataram had to begin, when that time also he had to be given a name, no? The Namakaranam of Krishna is one more incident where Radha Tattvam comes out completely. Because when Gargamuni is that Muni who was there at the time of Parvati Kalyanam. That Muni has come now and Nanda is so thrilled. He says, come and name my child. In the Bhagavatam, Garga says, I must do it secretly because Kamsa must have kept some spies here and he will be observing that all of this is happening. So let's do it quietly in a camp. Why does he want to do something secretly? Gargamuni will be scared of a king. No, Garga has a different plan altogether. We spoke about the Leela of her opening her eyes. That Leela's completion is hidden now. Its completion emerges now. So what happens is, Gargamuni takes Nanda into a small camp where only both of them are there and he names him and he says, this being that is here as your little child is the Lord of all of these universes. He is Ananta Padmanabha. Tadapaka Annamacharya says this. He says, Baluni vale tirige Padmanabhudu. He is that Padmanabha who is walking around like an innocent child. You know what his amazing, extraordinary feature is? He pulls every jiva towards himself. Sarva jiva akarshana tattvam he has. Once your eyes go towards him, no, your heart will go towards him. He pulls them. Sampurna karshayati. He just pulls towards himself. So we will call him as Krishna, he says. And in addition to this name, which is talking about this avataram is like this. That's why I said this avataram is attention seeking. Because he pulls you. Once he wants your attention, he won't let you go anywhere else. When he pulls you like this, in addition to this name, if you see other versions of the Bhagavatam, especially the Garga Bhagavatam, which is written by Gargamuni himself, he gives a beautiful description of the name Krishna, which I will talk about tomorrow because we need to understand that for Rasa Leela. This is also my way of ensuring that you're all there. Those of you in Bangalore will come tomorrow to Krishna Venugopal Swami Sannidhi and you will see why he is called Krishna. For the rest of you, you will see it online, maybe a day later. But now, after giving him these names of Krishna and other names of Vishnu, he says, Sarva Bhuta Nivasosi. He is the one who lives in all bhutas. That is why Nivasosi Vasudeva. So he will be called as Vasudeva. In this avataram, since he is also your son, he will be the son of Vasudeva as Vasudeva. In addition to this, he says, he is also the husband of Radha. Nanda looks up and he says, what? He is just born, like he's a few days old. But he is already and eternally the husband of Radha. So Nanda asks, who is Radha? And then Gargamuni says, she is the daughter of Vrishabhanu and Kirtida. And in any form that he takes, he and Radha will eternally be united. So Nanda says, in a folk version, Nanda says, can I witness their Kalyanam? When will Yashoda and I get to see it? And Garga says, neither Yashoda, nor you, nor Vrishabhanu, nor Kirtida, nor any of the Gopikas or the Gopas will see this Divya Kalyanam. This is a Gupta Kalyanam. So Nanda says, why? Why is this a secretive wedding? And he says, because Nanda, this wedding is not an ordinary coming together of two individuals. If you look in Samsaram also, every wedding, there is coming together a certain idea of Purusha, Prakriti, both of these coming together. Radha Kalyanam is different. It is fundamentally different because it is beyond the lens of dharma, adharma, beyond all these dualities of samsara. It is phenomenally so difficult to understand that as a Rahasyam, Garga says, it will be a Gupta Kalyanam. It is not something the whole world will see. So Nanda has a part to play in this. Garga gives him the baby and he says, exit this camp and go towards one place on Yamuna Tiram, on the banks of Yamuna. At the base, at the beginning, at the entrance to a forest, all you have to do is you will see a woman who is coming out from the forest, hand over this baby to that lady, know her to be Radha herself. In this, we understand that Radha is already a Kishori. She is of 16 years of age. 16, Sanskritam, Shodasha Varsha. Shodasha Varsha is the name ascribed to Lalita Mahatripura Sundari. Those of you making the connections, already these texts are ascertaining that this is Adi Shakti herself. It is not a decidedly fictional character. It is Jagannatha who has come. Nanda has only one role. Go and give this baby. Much like a Blinkit, he has to just perform that and go. Nanda steps out. And when he steps out from the camp, it's lovely weather. But suddenly it becomes stormy. And he sees this woman who is emerging from this vanam. And when she's stepping out, she is not at all affected by the storm. She is looking Chandra Sheetala Kirana. She is radiating joy as if the moon is in her face. And Nanda immediately recognizes her to be Radha. He just hands the boy over to him, over in her hands. She takes this boy and she turns inside. Nanda leaves now. She turns inside the vanam, and as she walks into this vanam, every part of the vanam comes to life. Through her magic, through the power of her Shakti, this vanam is now transformed into a celestial palace. It's transformed into a place where there is gold, there are gemstones, there are trees that are filled with Mainas that are singing Vedavaks. All of this is happening. She takes him there into a mantapam, into the heart of the vanam. And now she looks at this boy and she says, I am supposed to marry him. But how am I going to marry a young boy? Look at this little balaka. How am I possibly going to marry him? And in that moment, she barely has had the thought. He knows what everybody is thinking all the time. In that second, he becomes the exact same age as her. If she is Kishori, he is Kishora Chandra. So he looks at her and he says, now shall we get married? And she says, okay, but over butter bekala, we need one priest, no? One purohit is required, no? To perform the wedding. Who will do that? So Krishna smiles and he says, there was somebody who did tapas for you. For you, he tells Radha, for you he did tapas, not for one, not for two, but for 60,000 years he did tapas. And at the end of that 60,000 years, all he could see was the tip of your toenail. That is how difficult it is to see Radha. And that being, at the end of 60,000 years, he wailed. It is harder to reach Radha. It is harder to see Radha than to see Krishna. Because through Radha's grace, you can see Krishna. But to see Radha is very difficult. What I mean by this is, you can experience Anandam, but to see Prema is even harder. So, in that moment, when Brahma wailed to Krishna saying, 60,000 years I did tapas, this is how much I saw, will I not see her? Krishna is Navanita Hridayam, his heart is like butter, it will melt. So he says, Brahmadeva, for this tapas, what I will give you is, there will be an occasion when you will come and you will perform our wedding. That time you see to your heart's content, you see Radha and me together. You unite us, nobody else will be there at that Kalyanam. So now Brahmadeva is summoned by mere thought on behalf of Krishna. He comes and he begins the rituals for the wedding. Now it is amazing. There is no one in sight. All the devatas are in Urdhvaloka. They come down for the sight, but even them, to enter this sacred bhumi, only with Radha Krishna's permission can they step in over here. In other versions of the story, we see that Radha's Sakhis were her in the forest, but they could not come to the Mantapam. Out of her Ashta Sakhis, Lalita and Vishakha were there up to a point, but even they could not come closer because seeing Radha and Krishna unite is something that happens only by their wish. There is no trespassing that wish. Brahmadeva performs the entire Kalyanam for both of them, and at the end of the Kalyanam, as soon as it has finished, Krishna blesses him saying, now Brahma, you carry on to your Urdhvalokas. This will eternally remain as a Gupta Kalyanam. That Kshetram is still there in Vrajamandalam where they got married. Immediately don't worry about where is that Kshetram, when will I see it? Sadhana will show you what you are meant to see. If you need to see that Kshetram, somebody will come and tell you this is that Kshetram, go to these coordinates. Don't worry about Googling it and finding the answers. The answers will lay themselves out to you. Because Krishna himself said this is a Gupta Kshetram. Those who are meant to come here, I will decide. Now, they've just gotten married. And like any newly married couple, thankfully they didn't have Instagram, so they spent time with each other instead of making a reel. And in that moment of love, you see some beautiful leelas that happen between both of them. So first they go, they sit in a small pond, they sit in a boat, they spend some time with each other. Then she pulls his Pitambaram. When she pulls his Pitambaram, he pulls her lotus. Radha has a 1,000-petaled lotus over here. Remember this detail for Rasa Leela tomorrow, it will come in very handy. She has a 1,000-petaled lotus with her, and as soon as Krishna pulls this out of her hand, she pulls Krishna's flute. So now Radha has the flute and Krishna has the lotus. Ardhanarishwara Tattvam has come over here. That you are seeing Radha, and you will see if you go to Vrindavan, if you go to Nidhivan, inside Nidhivan there is one temple where Radha is holding the flute. That is testimony to this beautiful Leela as well, that she stole his flute and she said, I'll play the flute. You also see this in some beautiful folk art forms, some in those regions. Now they finally agreed to return it to each other. This is a mantra murti of Krishna holding the lotus and Radha holding the flute. So these mantra murtis appear over here, and then he takes flowers from one of the trees in that vanam and he starts to decorate them on Radha. So he makes a mala for Radha, he places it on her, he places flower bangles on her. Head to toe, he has done Shringaram of Radha, and Radha decides to do the same thing back to him. She's about to start, she plucks one flower and she's about to start. Suddenly this Kishora is gone and there's a baby boy in front of her. That baby boy is looking at her like this. And in that moment Radha says, will I at least not have the bhagyam of spending time with my lover, with the one that I married, with my partner, with my spouse, with my dharmakanta? Will I not get that time? And she wails to herself, because now Krishna's leelas are extremely inscrutable. Nobody knows why he does, what he does, when he does, how he does. If he feels like, he'll do it. Now for some reason he has become a balaka again. When he has become a balaka like this again, and Radha is feeling disconsolate, Krishna's leelas are not cruel. They are not being done in order to hurt her. So the same Krishna that's lying in front of her as a baby suddenly speaks in an Akashavani. Akashavani means not radio. He speaks as a voice in the skies. And that voice immediately says, Radha, do not despair, because the one that you are waiting to be in union with will spend all his time, but that will come after some time, that he will be one with you. For now, the Leela must resume. You take him now and give him to Yashoda. Nanda handed him over to you. You take him from this Kshetram and go back to Gokulam and hand him over. So Radha goes, places him into Yashoda's hands, and Yashoda says, thank you, because the storm outside is so much. I didn't know what happened to my boy. Putra Bhavam. Radha Murti is standing here. Radha Tattvam is speaking through Yashoda's mouth. Both the Radhas are meeting and they're both pouring towards Krishna. One is affectionately handing him over. One is affectionately saying, my boy is okay. No? That Bhavam over here comes out so beautifully. Today we had the Bhagyam on the eve of Radha Ashtami to witness and to hear Radha Kalyana Gadham, because this Kalyana Gadham is not an ordinary one. Thinking of Radha and Krishna getting married itself is a blessing. Witnessing it in our mind's eye is another one. So from this, now we fast forward. Govinda Pattabhishekam is over and the Lord is now the king of Vrajamandalam. Now let's go back to the princess that was told, because his leelas are going on. He has ample, he is very busy. Once he sets down his foot in Gokulam, from Gokulam, he doesn't stay in Gokulam, no? Rahasyam, Radha Tattva Rahasyam is over here. Series of things are happening in Gokulam. I jumped off to Govinda Pattabhishekam, which happened in Govardhan Giri, because he made me go there at train speed. We have to go 2 steps. We'll go 2 stations back now and see. What happens After Putana, Krishna upturns a little cart. After that, there is a Rakshasa that comes in the form of wind and Krishna kills him. So all the Vrajavasis, the Gokulavasis begin to think to himself, it's not safe for our boy over here in Gokula. Prema Tattvam. It's not safe for our boy. We should move. So they decide to move to Vrindavanam. How do they decide to move to Vrindavanam? One of the Gopas comes and says, there is a Vanam close by over here. We should move there. That place is Vrindavanam. You should see the description in the Bhagavatam. When they step into Vrindavanam, everybody is feeling something extraordinary. Radha's permission is required for any being to step into Vrindavanam. That's what it means over here. In Gokulam, by developing the prema that they had for Krishna, now these beings were given permission to step foot into Vrindavanam. Stepping foot into Vrindavanam is not a tourist package. It does not work like that. It requires that the goddess must feel, yes, this being has earned the right. Now let them step foot into it. Vrinda is one of Radha's names. We will come to that in a little while. But she is the one who gives permission. Just like Shiva gives permission for an ant also to step into Kashi, Shiva's permission must be there. For any being to step into Vrindavan, Radha's permission must be there. So they move from Gokulam to Vrindavanam. It is in Vrindavanam that the Govardhan Leela happens and Govinda Pattabhishekam happens. In Vrindavanam, which is ruled by Radha, he becomes the king. That is what here we understand as a Radha Tattva. Now, these Leelas are continuing. In Vrindavanam, he is very busy. So his Leelas are continuing. But what about her? She was told, a day will come when you will be with him again. But she has to wait for that day. Here is when we can have a dichotomy between Tattvam, between philosophy, and between the current reality. Current reality is saying they are separate. Radha and Krishna are in two separate places. He is in Vrindavanam, she is in Barsana. If they are in two separate places, she is also experiencing the pangs of separation. Here is when we understand that the character of Radha is not a character that is just a wailing lover. It is a being. She is transforming into the element of bhakti that is teaching us how should you crave for Krishna. You should crave for Krishna in a way that you say, I don't want anything else except you, Krishna. Nothing else but you. Radha's entire focus is on Krishna. And when that is your focus towards him, how he blesses Radha is how he can bless us. Radha becomes an Adarsha Tattvam for us, saying, this is what I want to emulate. I want to be like Radha. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa knew this. When you're talking about Radha and Krishna, you have to erase all prejudices. You cannot say, how can I become like Radha? I don't identify like that. I'm a man. In Krishna Tattvam, Krishna is the only man. Everybody else is a Gopi. Every other being, gender completely dissolves over there. You have to forego all sense of identity. That is what Paramahamsa did. When he said, if I want to see Krishna, I have to become Radha. And to become that, you have to feel so much of love in him. Love him as your son, Putra Bhavam. Love him as your lover, Kanta Bhavam. Love him as Paramatma, Paramatma Bhavam. All of these are fine. But have that Dridhatvam, saying, this is what I will do. Radha becomes an image saying, this is how you can do it. You can cry, you can scream, you can wail, you can do everything. Don't think bhakti is the absence of these things. You do it. But when you do it, know that he is watching out. He will respond. Bhakti, a tear that is shed for Bhagavanta. I'll underline this word. A tear that is shed for Bhagavanta, not for a favor from Bhagavanta. If you ask him for something, he'll give it to you. But if you cry saying, I want you, Paramatma, I want you, he will pick up that tear and he will wear it on his Vakshasthalam, saying, this is a gem to me because somebody asked for me. They didn't ask for something from me. Radha cries like that for him. She shows us how powerful Virahatapam is. Saying, if you want him, cry. Don't hesitate to cry. We in Samsaram, we are always crying. I want this, I want that, I want that. Cry, but cry for him. Don't cry for Prapancham. Cry for Paramatma. Radha's Upadesham to all of us. You put Radha's philosophy together, you will get something called Radha Gita. Don't ask me this was delivered on which Yuddha Bhumi. No. Radha's Gita is Radha's Upadesham to us, saying this is how you can earn divinity. This is how you can bring him. So Radha sets that precedent when she's sitting. Radha has 8 sakhis with her, Ashta Pradhana sakhis, 8 companions of her that never leave her side. What is this 8? I will decode a little while later. Now, out of them, she has 2 sakhis by name of Lalita and Vishakha. Vishakha and Lalita see that Radha is waiting for Krishna. And they know what Garga Muni also told them and what the Akashavani also said, which is you will be united with him. But they wonder, is there something that Radha can do so that she can be with Krishna very soon. So in that moment, when they are thinking like this, an instruction is given to them saying, ask her to perform the Tulsi Vratam. This Tulsi Vratam requires Shad Masam, 6 months of devotion to Tulsi. So a procedure is laid out, that beginning on Asvija Purnima and concluding on Chaitra Purnima. That is Asvija Masam. It's also good to do Namaskaram to the Devatas of different Masam. So we'll say those names also. So there is Asvija Masam, Kartika Masam, Margashirsha Masam, Pushya Masam, Magha Masam, Falguna Masam, Chaitra Masam. These months, continuously, one must do Tulsi Devi Aradhana. Why? Because Tulsi is again another form of the epitome of love for Krishna. Krishna is most fond of Tulsi. We all know this. We all know that Vishnu is very dear, or Vishnu is very dear to Tulsi and vice versa. So, one source of love is learning from another source of love, saying, you tell me, how can I become, all I want from you is teach me how to go towards Krishna. And when you look at Garga Samhita, which speaks about this portion, it gives you one more beautiful indication. It talks about how wherever there is a Tulsi shrub, one single Tulsi shrub, over there, Vrindavanam gets recreated. This is Garga's Upadesham for all of us. If you cannot go to Vrindavanam, recreate Vrindavanam around you. Worship one Tulsi. Krishna will reside there. This is why we have the practice on Kshirabdhi Dvadashi. That is the day after Utthana Ekadashi, when the Lord wakes up after Chaturmasya of sleeping, of Yoga Nidra. When he wakes up from that Yoga Nidra, the next day we perform Tulsi Kalyanam. That is because all the Devatas have not seen him for 4 months. At the end of those 4 months, he says, immediately when I wake up, takkanta, I'll go straight to Vrindavanam. I'll go Vrindavanam. Vrinda is a name of Radha, yes, but it's also a name of Tulsi. So I will go where there is a forest of Tulsi trees. If anybody wants to see me, please come to that office. So isliye sare Devi Devata, they come exactly there. That is why if you do Tulsi Puja on that particular day, when you do Tulsi Kalyanam, all the Devatas are there in that mud next to Tulsi. They say that the greatest kind of tilakam that you can put on your head is a little bit of mud from the base of a Tulsi, because there Narayana himself resides. So all of this is being said to talk about what Tulsi's bhakti is for Narayana and how Narayana will never leave her. So Radha knows, if I want to go to him, I have to go to somebody who is also inseparable from him. This is a Leela. Radha and Krishna are eternally together. But from the perspective of the Leela, she is showing us how we can also go close to him. And you will see this when you go to Vrindavan, you go to Gokulam, every home will have a Tulsi, irrespective of the size. And we don't need to have a cinema set saying, oh yes, only if I have this big a space will I set up an aesthetic Tulsi. People barely have, in so many cases that I've seen, they barely have fixed roofs over their head, but they'll have a Tulsi pot because they know that Narayana resides here. That is bhakti for Krishna. So, when she's doing this vratam, at the end of 6 months, Chaitra Purnima is over, and the next day, as a part of the Udyapana for the vratam, the conclusion of the vratam, she's giving away things in Dhanam. And there at that moment, it says, Tulsi Haripriya Suvarna Pitho Pari Shobhitasana. On a golden mantapam with Chaturbhuja Padma Palasha Vikshana Shyama Spurad Dhema Kirita Kundala. With 4 hands, with glowing earrings and Divyabharanams on her persona, Tulsi herself manifested from the plant. And she looked at Radha, she drew Radha close to her, and she kissed her on her forehead. And she said, bless you for the bhakti that you have shown. And this is the idea of Tulsi herself. Tulsi, the word Tulsi means asamanya atulya bhakti. Atulya, one bhakti which cannot be measured, is Tulasi. Tulam is to balance. Tula bharam is to balance. So, the one who is herself the epitome of bhakti is talking to another epitome of prema, saying, you have won me over by your heart. Ask for something. And this is what you will see across sadhakas, whether it is Radha here that is doing tapas for Krishna or Parvati who is doing tapas for Parameshwara. They will only ask for one thing. And Radha says that so very beautifully. Radha says, Govinda Padara Vinde Bhaktir Bhavenmi. Govinda Padara Vinde Bhaktir Bhavenmi. Give me bhakti for Govinda's feet, or Govinda's lotus feet. Radha herself is telling us that bhakti is durlabham. In this samsaram, everything else comes by virtues of formulas. You do certain things, you will attract certain things. You can attract wealth, you can attract good karma, you can attract anything else by virtue of what you do. But you cannot attract bhakti unless the Lord's grace is on you. So that is why the hardest thing is bhakti. But the thing is this, once bhakti comes, everything else will come. If bhakti goes and you have everything else also, it's meaningless. If bhakti comes and everything else comes and goes, nothing matters. That is what Mahabharata is teaching us. Everything went, Sampada went for the Pandavas, but they had Krishna. They had Krishna bhakti. That is why we worship them. They are adoration worthy. The Kauravas had so much Sampada. We don't look at them because they did not have bhakti. If bhakti is there, everything else will come. If bhakti is there and everything else also goes, even because of Purva Janma Dushkritam, because of what you have done earlier, that will not matter because bhakti will hold you. So Radha herself sets that precedent saying, Govinda Padaravinda Bhakti Bhaktir Bhavanye. Give me that bhakti for Govinda's Padaravindas. Tulsi just says, Tathastu. And in that moment, she is gone. As soon as she goes, now Radha is feeling a sense of contentment inside, that my tapas has come to an end. When Radha is feeling like this, there is someone else who knows that her tapas has fruited. You will see mirrors of these stories. When Parvati's tapas is concluded, an old man comes to her and he says, who is this tapas for that you are performing? And he troubles her, know it. Same thing this troublesome chap does. But he does it in his unique style. So he looks at his Vesham and he says, I'll change my costume a little bit today. So he changed his costume. I'm still in the same costume because I'm not Krishna. And as soon as he did, he's now going as a female, as a Gopi. And he goes into Vrishabhanu's palace. When he goes into Vrishabhanu's palace, in that moment, once he goes straight into the courtyard where Radha is sitting. When he goes there, all the other Gopikas, Radha's Ashtasakhis, are all smitten by him or her. And they're all looking, who is this? Radha's eyes catch onto this person. And she immediately goes to her. She does some namaskaram. And after this she says, who are you? Because you are reminding me of my Shyama Krishna. Radha Tattvam, Prema Tattvam is this. You see anybody, you remember your lover. We don't have to look as far as Paramatma. If we are missing somebody, suddenly we will find connections to everybody else and say, oh, you're reminding me, this thing you did, it reminds me of my grandmother. That's love. So immediately Radha has that same love as well. And when she's sharing that love, this Gopi identifies herself and says, my name is Gopa Devata. She says, okay, Gopa Devata, what brings you here? He said, no, I've heard wonderful things about you from your friends, Lalita and Vishakha, which is true because Lalita and Vishakha went to Krishna at one point and said, when will you come for Radha? So Krishna will not tell a lie, pa. But Gopa Devata says, I heard very nice things about you. So I've just come, I've come now just to spend some time with you. So Radha says, I'm so happy in your presence. Your presence is bringing me joy. Bhakti does this. It's not from you I get, or through something you do I get joy. Your presence is bringing me joy. Some people do puja like that. In puja itself, they're feeling happy. When they are sitting in that moment, they're feeling, this is it. And she says, I'm feeling that with you. So they speak and soon it becomes sunset. Now this Krishna had given his mother a promise that he'll always come back by Godhuli Vela, by the time the sun is setting. It is a beautiful word that we use to describe sunset, especially in Telugu and Kannada, which is Godhuli Vela. The time when cows are being walked back home, that time the hooves of their feet will kick up dust. So it is called Godhuli Vela, that time. And Krishna had promised Yashoda, because Krishna is a Gopala. So he has to go back by that time. But here he is busy doing full kirik party. So he says, listen. As Gopa Devata, he says, listen, I really have to go. And she says, please don't go anywhere, because if you go, I'll become very unhappy. So he says, no, I'll go. I'll come back tomorrow morning. After sunrise, I'll come. But sunrise or sunset to sunrise, whole time I have to be at home. Curfew. I have curfew at home. So I have to go. So Radha is very sad, but he goes. He says, I promise, I'll come back. Gopa Devata says, we'll call him her only. Otherwise, I'll only get confused. So Gopa Devata says, I'll come back tomorrow morning, and she leaves. Next morning, again she comes back. And Radha is so happy. So Radha runs to her and says, Gopa Devata, everything well? Gopa Devata was smiling up till that moment. No. What happened? Did I say something? And this is also dynamics, social dynamics. When we make a new friend, we're particularly careful that we don't want to do anything to upset them. Old friends will be like, hey, you understand, man, come on. थोड़ा समझा करो यार, ये सब होता है दोस्ती में. But new friend, no, you have to be 3 times more careful. Saying, did I say something? Did your mother say something? Did your father say something? What happened? Tell me. And Gopa Devata said, nothing. I was coming here to see you in the morning and I saw that son of Nanda, Krishna. So Radha says, really? And then Gopa Devata says, yeah, I saw him. And then he says, he looked at me and he said, you have to give me tax if you live over here. You have to give me some tax. And she says, Krishna asked you for something. And imagine this, the whole world is asking that Paramatma for something, that Paramatma asked you for something. What did you say? Immediately Gopa Devata says, what do you think I said? I said, I will not give you anything. I am not going to become your dasa. What do you think? I owe you something. And the words are so beautiful. In Garga Samhita, where these words come, it comes as Tubhyam nadasyami kadapi danam. Tubhyam nadasyami. I will not become your dasa. Kadapi danam. I will never give you anything. Why? Why should I give you anything? Because Gorasa Lampataya. You are desperate for curds. You are greedy fellow that you are always running behind people's curd, behind their dahi. You expect me to give you something. Yeah. And I walked off and I came. So Radha's heart broke when she heard this. She said, so you didn't give him anything? And in that moment, Gopa Devata says, no. But what happened to you? Now you are looking upset. First I was upset when I came here because this fellow bothered me. Now you are looking upset, Radha. Why? She says, because you spoke about my Krishna like that. And Gopa Devata says, oh, your Krishna is so great, is it? And Radha says, he is. And then Gopa Devata tests her and says, really? If your Krishna is so great, all these things. So Radha says, you don't know who Krishna is. And Radha speaks about Krishna. Why does Krishna test his devotee? Why does Shiva test Parvati? Because Bhagavan, when you hear about Bhagavan from a bhakta, no, the expression is unmatched. The way it comes out for a bhakta, because for a bhakta, Bhagavan is the closest thing to their heart. So the way they speak about Bhagavan is unmatched. So Radha speaks about Krishna and she says, do you know who he is? He is Sarva Prana Koti Karshana Tattvam. He pulls all the Prana Kotis towards himself. He is my Prananatha. He sits in my heart day to night, minute to minute, taking care of me. And his name is bringing me joy, but you are saying all these things about him. So Gopa Devata says, really? Then in that case, if you're saying he's all these powerful things, you please call him right now. Let me see if he'll come over here. This moment for Radha feels like her bhakti is attacked. So she closes her eyes and she starts to think of Krishna. When she's thinking of Krishna like this, she cries because viraha tapam, the tears that we shed, like we mentioned earlier, the tears that we shed for the Lord are the greatest that we can ever let go. And she cries thinking of him saying, Baro. This is the expression of Baro, Ninamakhatoro. Show me that face. Krishna ni begane Baro. Ra. Show me that love. And in that moment, when she calls him like that, Krishna may tease, Krishna may poke, but Krishna will never hurt. That is his swabhava. So in that moment, Radha's eyes are closed. And when she opens her eyes, instead of Gopa Devata, Krishna is sitting there. So she looks around and she says, first she's drawn to Krishna. And Krishna just gently touches her forehead and he says, Radha, what happened? That touch itself takes away the agony and the heat that she was feeling. And as soon as that settles, she says, there was some Gopa, her words also are choking. She said, some Gopa Devata who was saying all kinds of things about you. It was hurting me. Krishna says, Radha, you don't believe in all these Mayacharis, pa. You believe only in me, okay? Don't worry about all these people. All these Mayacharis is basically his Yoga Maya. Don't believe in any Yoga Maya. I am that Purusha that you have fallen in love with. And he does this Leela. She has no idea that it is him who has done any of this. So then, so saying, Krishna and Radha come together and this love is deep because now they've seen each other and they're spending time with each other. And now is when something extraordinary happens from this portion on. Because the multiple Bhagavatams want us to understand certain things. They want us on one hand to understand that Radha Krishna Tattvam, for it to be eternal, two things must happen. For it to be eternal where? In this heart. If this has to be eternal, we have to recognize that he is the Lord of this entire space. If he is the Lord, if he is the king that is ruling this space, she is the queen. She has to be made the queen. I gave this Suchana at Govinda Pattabhishekam. If Govinda Pattabhishekam has to happen, Radha Pattabhishekam has to happen as well. So, one fine day, on a day that is, or the daytime of Purnima, that fine day, Vrinda Devi, who is Vrinda Devi? Tulsi herself. Tulsi herself calls some of Radha's Sakhis and says, I wish that we arrange for a Pattabhishekam of Radha. Who is the Sakhi that she calls? One of them is Purnamasi. Purnamasi is the ruling devata of Purnima Tithi, of the full moon. All of these points, all of these beings whose names are coming here are all characters in the Rasa Leela. They are all Shaktis in the Rasa Leela. One thing is linked to the other. So for Radha Leela to turn into Rasa Leela, all the Punadi, all the foundation is here. So Purnamasi, Vrinda Devi, Lalita, and all the other Sakhis all decide that, okay, let's call Krishna and arrange for a Pattabhishekam for Radha. So they go to Krishna and they say, Krishna, we all had a sankalpam that we will do Radha Pattabhishekam. And Sri Brahmashri Samvedam Shanmukha Sharma in his discourse, he talks about this portion so beautifully. He says that for you to believe that this is your sankalpam is not true. This is my sankalpam. It has manifested through you. This is Tanme Mana Shiva Sankalpamastu. It has Shiva's, you call him Shiva, you call him Krishna. That Tattvam is remaining the same. But this is my sankalpam that is manifested through you. So let the Pattabhishekam of Radha happen. The Pattabhishekam has to happen, so it had to become dark for a second. So, in that moment, when the Pattabhishekam preparations are in full swing, there is again a magical transformation of a grove into the most divine space. Sadhana Rahasyams are hidden here. When you go to a kshetram, you will not see this. You will see ordinary trees, you will see roads, and because we are senseless tourists for the most part, you will see plastic strewn all over. Because for the human eye, this is all you will see. You will see dirt and trash, and unfortunately we cause that. But for the eye of a sadhaka, you will see divinity. What appears in Bhava Vrindavanam, in your Bhavam, Bhavamulona Bahyamanundu Govinda Govinda Anikolovave O Manasa, Annamacharya said, in your Bhavam you worship, in that Bhava Vrindavanam, all of this is blooming. Don't think of it only as a physical plane. You may not see what's happening there, but there are devatas there. And in that beautiful moment, Krishna has arranged for everything to be transformed, befitting the coronation of a queen. And at the appointed hour, at midnight, when Purnamasi is high in the sky, Krishna arrives. Lalita and Vishakha and all the other 6 Sakhis hold Radha's hands, just like Sachamara Ramavani Savya Dakshina Sevita. With Lakshmi and Saraswati, the way Mahatripura Sundari appears into the Sabha in Manidvipam, the same way Lalita and Vishakha hold her hand and bring Radha onto this golden pedestal. On that golden pedestal, there is a Divya Simhasanam. On that throne, they seat Radha, and then Krishna Chandra appears. It is Purnamasi and Krishna Chandra has appeared. Krishna Chandra appears, holding with him a kiritam that is glowing. It is Dhadayamanam. That Dhagayamana Kirita that he holds, which is glowing and radiating so much light by virtue of the stones on it, Krishna takes that and he places it onto Radha's head and he says, I am now crowning you as the queen, as Vrindavana Adhishtatra Devata, the ruling deity of Vrindavan. It is through you and through your grace alone that anybody can attain me. This is the realm that I am granting you, the realm of love, the realm of devotion. And in that moment, he says something extraordinary. He says, if somebody calls me Krishna, more than that, if they call me Shri Krishna, because Shri is your name, I will be happy. You go to Vrindavanam, everywhere she is called as Shri Ji. That is the respect that is shown for her. Bhagavatam also shows this respect for somebody else. You know who? Everywhere that Shuka Yogendra speaks, Bhagavatam says, Shri Shuka Uvacha. Why does it say Shri Shuka Uvacha? It can say Shuka Uvacha, no? You read any of the other Sahasranamams, you will say Bhishma Uvacha, Yudhishthira Uvacha. Anywhere where there is somebody is saying it is Uvacha. But it says Shri Shuka Uvacha. Shri is Radha's name. Radha has a parrot with her. That parrot is constantly close by to Radha, listening to her. And one day that parrot flies from her and goes and sits with Krishna for some time and listens to everything that Krishna is saying and comes and brings that news back to Radha. That is bringing Radha great joy. That parrot that she is holding is reborn as Shuka Yogindra. That Shuka Yogindra is only telling us this story. That is the author of the Bhagavatam. So the one who is telling us this story himself has been in such close proximity to Shri herself. So that is why Radha now, or Krishna now tells Radha that your name is Shri. Let somebody attach your name first. That is why we say Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. That let me, I bow down to Radha and Krishna together. What does it mean? Why are we creating such an elaborate context for Radha Pattabhishekam? By him crowning her, what it means and saying that through you, with your permission alone, can somebody come to me. What it means is through prema and through bhakti alone can somebody find Bhagavan. That's all it means. You substitute the words that we first said. Radha is prema, Krishna is anandam. Through prema alone can you find anandam. You cannot find it through anything else. Any other upasana margam that you follow it with prema. You are on yoga margam, follow yoga. You are on bhakti margam, follow it with prema. You are on puja margam, upasana margam, do everything else. Vicharana margam, adhyatma margam, do that with love. Anything that you do it. Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, these are all people who showed us that you can be in any of these paths of intellectualizing and working with your intellect. But that has to have love also. When Radha enters is when you go to Krishna. Without that, you cannot find him. That is why she is present as a Gudha Nayika, because she makes herself just disappear in the background, but she takes you and places you into his hand. And in this moment, when she is crowned the queen on the eve of her birthday, let us also take a few seconds to listen to 16 and to recite wherever we are these 16 names of hers, which contain the essence. This stotram that we see, it is called as the Radha Shodashanama Stotram. Radha Shodashanama Stotram is phenomenal because after giving you 16 names of Radha, it goes on to give the Vyakhyanam, the reasoning, the explanation for each name and why it comes about. If we go into that, it will be a massive conversation in itself. But let us, at the very beginning, or at the very beginning of the Ashtami, the Radha Ashtami that has to happen here, let us say those 16 names. I will say them. Give a breather for you to say it, because most of you are on live stream. I will not be able to hear you back, but wherever you are, take a second to internalize these names. The very first name that Narayana pronounces on her is Radha. The second name, after Radha, Raseshwari. After she is called Raseshwari, she is called Rasavasini. Rasavasini is the third name. Rasikeshwari is the fourth. Krishna Pranadhika is the fifth. Krishna Pranadhika. The sixth is Krishna Priya. Krishna Priya. The seventh is Krishna Swarupini. Krishna Swarupini. The eighth is Krishna Vamanga Sambhuta. Krishna Vamanga Sambhuta, the one who has emerged from his left half. Love has emerged from his heart. That's what it is indicating through this. The next one is Paramananda Rupini, the manifestation of joy, Paramananda Rupini. The next is Krishna. It's her name also. Krishna. And the next is Vrindavani. Vrindavanam itself, if it took a form, that place, if it took a form, it would be called Vrindavani. The next is Vrinda. After this is what I mentioned earlier, this is the name of hers. After this is Vrindavana Vinodini, the one who delights in Vrindavanam. Vrindavana Vinodini. Chandravali, the one who is glowing like Chandra. Chandravali. Chandrakanta, the one who is radiating beams of joy. Chandrakanta. And the last is Sharat Chandra Prabhanana. Sharat Chandra Prabhanana, the one who glows like the moon in the month of Sharat Kalam. Sharat Kala Chandra, the Chandra that is in that month of Sharat Kalam, is a very important devata for us in the next portion of the story. But look at this beautiful moment. Radha is being compared to Sharat Kala Chandra. You will see poets across have a deep fascination for Sharat Kalam. Why Sharat Kalam? They don't say Chaitra Purnima. They don't say you glow like Chaitra Purnima. They'll always say Sharat Chandra Nibhanana, Shatodari Shantimati. Somewhere is sounding familiar, no? We've heard this, no? We're saying it every day. We just have to think about it a little bit and wonder, what are they trying to say over here? Sharat Kalam. When does Sharat Kalam come? Sharat Kalam is autumn. Autumn comes when? After Varsha Ritu. After Varsha Ritu comes Sharad Ritu. In Varsha Ritu, there is a downpour. And when there is water, there is stagnation. So there are lots of bugs and lots of dirt also that emerges at that time. In Sharat Kalam, there is none of that burda. There is just there is a pleasantness in the air. Monsoon has cooled down the intense heat that was there before, and now there is just joy around. So you can see the clearest Chandra that you can see is in Sharat Kala. It is at that time that you can see Chandra fully, because in Varsha Ritu, which is what we are currently in, it may be rainy during Purnima times. But in Sharat Kalam, typically, with global warming one cannot say, but otherwise, typically you will see Chandra completely in that month. That is one aspect. The second is, in Sharat Kalam, on Sharat Chandra, specifically with respect to Purnima, there are two Purnimas that come. One is Aswija Purnima, the second is Kartika Purnima. Both of these Purnimas are called as Rasa Purnimas. It is on these two nights that from Chandra, there is a radiation of Amrita Tattvam. The Chandra Kiranas radiate Amrita Tattvam. That is why, especially for these Purnimas, there are a host of celebrations. What is celebrated in the north as Dev Deepavali in Kashi, what is celebrated in Vrindavan as Rasa Purnima or Rasotsav, what is celebrated in the south as Kartikai Deepam, what is celebrated as Kartika Purnima, what is celebrated in the east as Kojagiri, all of these are because Rishis identified that this night is powerful, and this night's Chandra is radiating Amrita Kiranas. Radha's face is that night's Chandra itself. That is why the last name is Sharat Chandra Prabhanana, the one who is radiating that immortal love just onto our beings. So this is the aspect of Radha. This is also a Dhyana Murti of Radha. This Swarupam of hers that is glowing, seated there on the Simhasanam with Lalita and her remaining Sakhis. There was a connection to the number 8 that we had to explore here, because all 8 of them are seated here. We see this beautiful story in the Devi Puranam. The Devi Puranam is different from the Devi Bhagavatam. In this story, what happens is, Shiva and Shakti are seated in Kailasa. When they are seated with each other, Shiva tells Gauri, or he tells Kali rather, that look at you. You're so extraordinarily beautiful, and I'm so deeply in love with you. However, in these physical forms that we have taken, you are in a feminine form, and I am in a masculine form. So I am loving you from a masculine perspective. But I want to know, what is it to love you from a feminine perspective? So she smiles and she says, so what Leela are you thinking of? So he says, let us also go to Bhulokam. We will swap genders. You become female, or rather you become male, and I will become female. She says, Mate identity, full confusion, Allah. He says, no, we'll retain some parts of our identity. You are Shyamala. You are the dark one. You remain. Shyamala becomes Shyama Krishna. And she says, okay, and what about you? Shiva is Karpura Gauram Karunavataram. Karpura Gauram, he's the color of camphor. So she says, you retain this Swarupam as Karpura Gauram, and you come as Radha. So if I am Shyama Krishna, you come as Radha. And Shiva has with him, or Shiva has 8 forms that we call as the Ashtamurtis of Shiva. These Ashtamurtis are, when we do Shiva Puja, those of you familiar with this Vidhanam will know Bhavaya Devaya Namaha, Rudraya Devaya Namaha, Ugraya Devaya Namaha, all of these. But simply said, these Ashtamurtis are the Pancha Mahabhutas, Prithvi, Apaha, Agni, Vayu, Akasha, Panchabhuta. Shiva is these Panchabhutas plus Surya, Chandra, 7. The 8th one is called Kshetrajna, the knower of the self. Shiva is all these 7 plus 1, 8. So Shiva says, I have 8 forms. Those 8 forms will first come as my Ashta Sakhis. Those are the ones surrounding here. They will later come as your Ashtabharyas. That is the reason Krishna has Ashtabharyas over there. That 8 there is all of the 8. That is Rukmini, Satyabhama, and all the other Bharyas that Krishna has are Shiva's 8 forms. That is one interpretation. The other interpretation is, of course, that they are Ashtalakshmis that Krishna has. So in this moment, Shiva is he says, in my Paripurna Swarupam, I will come as 2 Swarupams, or predominantly as this Swarupam, Radha Swarupam, and also as Rukmini Swarupam. Rukmini is no less. There is a notion, and a lot of people, I'm taking the time to explain this because a lot of people, I just got a message, in fact, this morning on Instagram, so I'm not shaming the message, but I think it's a good time to explore. There are people who feel passionately towards Rukmini Bhakti saying, and somebody wrote to me saying, how is it fair that we keep pictures of Radha and Krishna at home? Would it be okay if I kept a picture of me and my boyfriend before marriage at home and not my husband? So shouldn't it be a picture of Krishna and Rukmini? But the problem with this seemingly innocent question is, we are believing that Radha and Rukmini are equal to girlfriend and wife. These are two manifestations of Parabrahma Shakti. They are one and the same. They don't have that confusion and that fighting between each other, so we don't have to. Number two, if you are in that margam, which is looking at Krishna along with Rukmini, there also Radha will be there. Go to Pandharpur. Rukmini is there next to Vithala over there. But all the Varkaris are singing about Rukmini and Radha as well. So there is no need in Bhakti Margam, in Prema Margam, when you are on the path of that, you will not do Devata Dvesham. You will not do a strong hatred or not display hatred towards any other form. So in this Swarupam, it is Shiva in the center with all the Ashtamurtis around him. This is Ashtamurti Raja Jaitri Lokayatra Vidhayini, which is coming in the Lalita Sahasranam. These Ashtamurtis who are constantly worshipping Krishna. The Ashtasakhis are now with Krishna and Radha, who are worshipping both of them together. See, Radha Krishna Tattvam you get into, it will take you into Shiva Shakti Tattvam. If you are on that margam, one thing will open you into the next. So here, this is a beautiful Dhyanamurti now, both of them seated on this Divya Simhasanam, and all the Ashtasakhis are around them, and she is glowing like Sharat Chandra Prabhanana, and they start to pull that swing. And as they swing them, Krishna smiles to himself, because now another Leela is about to open itself. And this Leela is the most phenomenal portion of Bhagavatam. Because Bhagavatam is not a book. Srimad Bhagavatam is the manifestation of Paramatma's body. These 12 chapters correspond to the 12 syllables, the 12 aksharas of the Vasudeva mantra. With Omkaram in the beginning and Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, every chapter has the essence of one aksharam. Over there, if you look from this process, the Mukhasthanam of Virat Purusha, the head of Virat Purusha, is the Dashamaskandam, the 10th chapter of the Bhagavatam. Every being has to have pranam, right? Only when they have pranam do we recognize them to be as living. So what is the pranam? How many pranas do we have within our body? We have pancha pranas. Prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana. Those pancha pranas are the 5 chapters that come in the Dashamaskandam. Those 5 chapters are the essence. In Sanskritam, essence is called as saram. Sara is the essence. Sanskrit always uses interchanging words to convey a point. Something that causes himsa or violence to us is called as a simha. Something that Veda recognizes as divinity is called as Veda becomes Deva. You just have to swap the aksharas. So if himsa becomes simha, Veda becomes Deva, rasa or sara becomes rasa. Sara Bhutam, the essence of entire Bhagavatam, is hidden in those 5 chapters. Those 5 chapters, the Sara Bhutam of that, the essence of that is the Rasa Leela. The Rasa Leela's 5 chapters are the Pancha Pranas for Parameshwara. For entire universe of Bhagavatam, this is the Prana Shakti. That Prana Shakti is the Rasa Leela. Rasa Leela, we will explore it in great detail tomorrow, because it deserves not 1 or 2 days or even just an hour. It deserves a lifetime of sadhana. But to build that context, it's important for us to understand that this Leela is extraordinary. Because we have unfortunately picked up this Leela and called it as a Kamakeli Leela. We have said, this is a lustful thing of Krishna roaming with women. And tomorrow we will uncover this Leela layer by layer, sitting and understanding what is being said over here. But just as a starter, to erase those notions in our head, look at who is communicating this Leela. Shuka Yogendra, who is a Brahma Vayakta, who is somebody so lost in Parabrahma, who has no hint of kamam towards the world. And Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj is sitting here with 7 days left for his pranam to go and attain Krishna Padaravinda. He is not interested in, please tell me a story about how a man and a woman came together. Neither of them have any interest in Kamakeli. They are operating from a very, very different lens. Such a being is instructing another being. One is a moksha kankshi. He is waiting for moksha and moksha alone. He is put away all other prapancham and said, I'm ready. Now tell me. Such a being is being told about Rasa Leela, and Shuka Yogendra says the pranam of Bhagavatam is here, ma. Pay attention to this. You crack this, all of Bhagavatam will open for itself for you. So that is not a Kamakeli. That is special to Radha and Krishna. And that, in complete focus, deserves an entire day, because Rasa Leela has one thing about it. Once we start it, we cannot leave it. Because once Krishna pulls us into that Bhumika, we have to stay there only. So for tonight, let us stay in that Vanam, where Radha, Krishna and the Ashtasakhis, whose names are Lalita, Vishakha, Champakalata, Chitra, Tungavidya, Indulekha, Rangadevi and Sudevi. All these are Devata Shaktis that are present around us, because Krishna Namam and Radha Namam is sitting in our heads. Wherever Radha and Krishna, they will also come. So may those Ashtasakhis and Radha Krishna in the center, let's keep them in our heart for tonight. Because Rasa Leela requires preparation inside. For this, we have to think about them. Tomorrow is Radha Ashtami. There cannot be a more phenomenal day. Sit, do one Radha Ashtotram, one Krishna Ashtotram, or if nothing, just take that name, Radha Krishna, through the day. And I'll leave you all with that one story. I have shared it earlier, but Adhikasya Phalam Adhikam. It's always more joyous to mention it again and again. After he crowns her, the queen of Vrindavanam, she gives a shasanam. The first shasanam she gives, the first rule that she gives. Shasanam for us only means Bahubali. We'll think Namate shasanam. But the first order that she issues across Vrindavanam is, I am the queen of Vrindavanam, and there is one name that brings me great delight. That's the name of Krishna. So let everybody in this bhumi chant his name. And this is carried out. One day, somebody comes and reports to her, her Shuka comes and reports to her saying, I saw Krishna, he's sitting in deep joy and he's crying. She says, yeah, what is making him cry? What is bringing that Ananda Bashpal, tears of joy? What is making him cry like that? And the Shuka says, I listened to what he was saying to himself, and he was closing his eyes and he was saying your name, Radhe, Radhe. So Radha thought to herself saying, it is bringing Krishna joy if my name is said. So for Krishna's sake, everybody say Radhe, Radhe henceforth. That is why in Vrindavanam, the name that we all say is for Krishna's sake, we say Radha. We say Radha's Namam, which in Sambodhana becomes, in conversation when we address, saying Radhe, Radhe. Keep saying that name across today and tomorrow. Those of you watching online, do not worry. We will get you this recording as well. It will not be complete on our end. Your yajnam and our yajnam will remain incomplete until we hand over Rasa Leela for you. So we will figure out a way to set that up. Just give us a little while. It will reach you. You will be able to see it, albeit not live, but it will emerge for you. Until then, just stay with Radha and Krishna and the Ashtasakhis in your heart. May their Divya Dampatyam, on the eve of the most phenomenal day of Radha Ashtami, may their grace be on each of our hearts and in our homes. Sarvam Shri Radha Krishna Parabrahma Padaravindarpanamastu. Swasti.